What's up, guys? T-Rock1992 here. For this next video, I am going to be talking about the big movies that came out in the month of February. This video is a little bit late, but without further ado, I'm going to get into the films that occurred in February. A quick thing, actually, before I get into it. February was a better month overall for movies. In January, if you go back to my January video, you'll see that, or you'll hear that only one film in January had a positive rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and that was Kung Fu Panda 3. There are more in this month and all that. I think there's a couple anyway. So February is an improvement over January for sure, and I'm gonna go ahead and talk about it. So the first week of it was the week of February 5th, the February 5th weekend. There's my cat. Making a cameo again. So the two movies I'm going to talk about, which came out, actually the three movies that came out in the week of February 5th. First one I'm going to talk about is the Coen Brothers movie, Hail Caesar. This movie, actually my parents went to go see it. They didn't like it, needless to say, and it seemed like an interesting movie to me. I mean, it's one of those movies for me that I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen any of the movies in February yet, so I'm just going to be talking about what I do know about these films. Same thing with January. I didn't see any of the films in the month of January. So, this is Hail Caesar, anyway, is the new Coen Brothers movie, and it's a story about old-time Hollywood. This is the Hollywood industry in the 1950s. Couple of things are going on. There's a cast member who apparently gets kidnapped, and a lot of chaos goes on the Hollywood set. They're doing a Roman movie. I think the movie is called Hail Caesar in the film. The movie within a movie. But yeah, Hail Caesar. I mean, it's got a cast. Josh Brolin, been in a few movies and all that. George Clooney, big superstar name. Jonah Hill, 2 Oscar nominations on his belt. Scarlett Johansson, Channing Tatum, a couple other ones. Tilda Swinton, I've heard of that name. Frances McDormand. So this cast was very impressive. Overall, on a budget of $22 million, the movie made $47 million. So, for the type of movie it was going to be, from what I heard, this movie was not going to be a big moneymaker. So for what it made, it wasn't too bad. It wasn't terrible or anything. I mean, maybe a little more. Maybe they wanted to make a little more money, but overall, they got to be somewhat satisfied. As for the reception on Rotten Tomatoes, 83%. So critics did like this movie a lot. My parents didn't, but they were part of the audience that went to go see that movie, and they didn't like it, but it was an 83% on Rotten Tomatoes. So the next film that opened up that I'm going to talk about is Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. There's a lot of movies that are out there, like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters, that you take old fairy tales, or you take old, fairy tale in the case of Hansel and Gretel. You take a president in Abraham Lincoln, make him into a vampire hunter. A lot of films are doing that lately, and they've had a lot of mixed success. I think Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter was mixed reaction from critics or to negative, and so that was a mixed reaction. And Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters, I think, was kind of the same thing. So Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. Pride and Prejudice, of course, is it's a book by Jane Austen, the author Jane Austen, and you take elements from that book and you put zombies in there. So there you go. The movie itself didn't make a lot of money. You could consider it a box office bomb. On a $28 million budget, it made only $15.4. So it lost the studio money. So unfortunately for them, the movie didn't make a lot of money, and it didn't get a great reaction from critics on Rotten Tomatoes. 43% overall. It definitely just didn't really hit the mark with critics, and it wasn't a big moneymaker. So yeah, I mean, this movie combines Pride and Prejudice, what you know about that book, for those of you who have read the book, and then it adds zombies into it. And so I think the Pride and Prejudice characters, they have to, a lot of the girl characters, there's this army of girls who have to fight the zombies, off before the zombies destroy them. So that's kind of what the film is about, from what I've heard. The next movie on my list, the final movie I'm going to talk about for the week of February 5th, is The Choice. And I just talk about that because this is based on a Nicholas Sparks novel. And for the demographic that really likes these type of movies, you're probably pretty pleased that the movie came out and all that. Just another Nicholas Sparks film. He wrote books, a lot of his movies have been translated into books. 11 of his novels have been adjusted to film. The Notebook is probably the most noteworthy one, actually. The Notebook in particular. Probably the best successful adaptation that he's had. Needless to say, The Choice, on a $10 million budget, it made $21.3 million. For the studio, they probably wanted a lot more money, some more money for it, but there's the fact that this movie targets a specific audience, and people outside that audience aren't going to go see this movie. So, and they didn't go see this movie, as evidenced by the numbers. And the reception for it, 11%. So, critics panned this movie, for sure. I think that's happened to a lot of the Nicholas Sparks movies, actually, that they've been critically panned. They have been described as very cliche, kind of the same thing happening in every movie, things like that. It actually had a couple names here. Maggie Grace, who was probably best known for the Taken movies as the daughter of Liam Neeson's character. Alexandra Daddario, who was in the movie San Andreas last year, I believe. Tom Wilkinson, who, whenever Tom Wilkinson pops up, he's a good fit. Some movies of his, Rush Hour 2, the first Rush Hour, The Patriot, and other movies as well. So, yeah, The Choice just wasn't successful. So the next week I'm going to talk about is the week of February 8th. Or actually February 12th, excuse me. And there were 3 big movies that opened up that week. And, I mean, it was a big week. First of all, I gotta talk about probably the biggest surprise. Well, maybe not the biggest surprise, but in terms of the money that it made. Deadpool. Deadpool had an amazing ad campaign. I saw a lot of the trailers and things like that, and I was laughing. It was hilarious. I really wanted to see this movie. I haven't gotten the chance to yet. If I don't, I'll probably catch it on Put Locker, most likely, when it comes out. So, Deadpool. It's about Deadpool. His alter ego is Wade Wilson, and he is a mercenary who an unfortunate circumstance happens to him. He gets operated on, and he gets these powers. He gets healing powers, the ability to heal pretty fast, and he takes revenge on the people who, so he takes revenge on the people that hurt him and all that. The people that hurt him and wronged him and all that. So it's a revenge tale, sort of. But I mean, on a budget, the budget was $58 million, which you don't see a lot of those budgets these days. You see a lot of $100 million budgets. And then on the opposite end, you see a lot of $5 million, $10 million budgets. There's no middle ground, basically. So Deadpool, with a $58 million budget, didn't have to spend a ton of money in terms of Hollywood. I mean, $58 million's a lot of money, but it's not for Hollywood, anyway. But the money this movie has made, $677.8 million. This movie has been a smash hit. A smash hit. And you gotta give credit where credit's due. I've heard great things about Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. The thing that I thought of, I knew he was going to give a good performance anyway. I knew he was going to give a great performance. And the reason why I knew that was because there was a movie early on in his career, National Lampoon's Van Wilder. Great comedy movie. It is really good. From what I hear, Deadpool has the same type of humor as what National Lampoon's Van Wilder was. Same, maybe not the exact same type, but I think similar kind of things, of elements. So that made me loving National Lampoon's Van Wilder like I do, I am very much anticipating Deadpool. When I see it is a question, but I will definitely see it someday for sure. Rotten Tomatoes thought that Deadpool was very successful as well. It got a 84% on Rotten Tomatoes. Good rating for it. So, Deadpool, big critical success, big box office success. So there's 2 movies right there that, oh, I forgot to mention Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, what that rating was, I believe. If I didn't mention it, the rating's 43%. Actually, I did mention it. My bad, I did mention that. But already 2 movies, Hail Caesar and Deadpool, that have positive ratings on Rotten Tomatoes. So February, you just got ahead of January right there in terms of positive ratings. The second movie I'm going to talk about is Zoolander 2. Another movie that I am so excited for because this movie, I love the original Zoolander. You can go back and check my review on this channel about Zoolander. I love Zoolander. It's one of my favorite comedy films of all time. It's that good to me, for sure. So, you can understand that I'm very excited for Zoolander 2. Haven't gotten the chance to see it yet. I'd like to sometime. But apparently, people haven't thought the movie's been very good the way that people have not clamored to see this movie. It was made on a $50 million budget, and it's made only $53.1 million so far. I think it's towards the tail end of its theatrical run, but the movie has not been a box office success at all. There just aren't a lot of people that are interested in seeing it, and I think mainly you can credit, I think in some ways, the first Zoolander came out in 2001. Zoolander 2 came out this year, 2016. That's a big gap between sequels. Between the first movie and the sequel. So, there probably are a lot of fans that have lost interest. Plus, there have been talk for years about Zoolander 2. You know, there's been talk for years, and then they finally come out with the movie this year. Just some fans lost some interest. And it's unfortunate. But critics did not like this movie at all. 24% on Rotten Tomatoes, which isn't unusual. I mean, comedy sequels tend to do worse than the original than the original movies. So, not unusual there. So, but still, I definitely want to see this movie. And then the final movie that came out in that week of February 12th was How to Be Single, a romantic comedy. And How to Be Single is, first of all, the cast alone in this movie is impressive. You have Dakota Johnson, Rebel Wilson, Allison Brie, Leslie Mann as the four main characters in the film. Those are some brand name actresses right there. So How to Be Single, you know, these women are a lot of these women are single. They're trying to find, it's basically what the title says. These women are trying to figure out how to be single. Because I think apparently they've had dates for a while, I assume. Anyway, I don't know a whole lot about the plot, but it looks interesting. I mean, I'm a fan of romantic comedies, so I'll probably see it when it comes out on Putlocker. My mom actually saw the movie, and she really liked it. She thought it was a big surprise to her as a movie and all that. So, I'll definitely see it when it comes out on Putlocker. Overall, the movie's made some money. $38 million budget. It's made $85.4 million. So, it's definitely made its money, for sure. So it definitely worked out by the movie coming out in February, close to Valentine's Day. So it was a good move for this movie to come out Valentine's Day because romantic comedy, you have a lot of your female demographic that went to see this film probably. I'm assuming there's a lot more female demographic for this movie than for male demographic. Not to say that males don't like romantic comedies and all that. It's just, you know, women, I just think, like that stuff more. Like the romantic comedies more and all that sort of thing. So there you go. I mean, my cat. He just loves the camera. Ah, you gotta get down, buddy. So, overall, for the movie in general, it got a 50%. So mixed, it's right down the middle in terms of mixed review. So there you go. This movie, I'm looking forward to seeing it, actually, when it comes out on Putlocker and all that. The next week, February 19th, there are 3 movies that I'm going to talk about here. The first one is Race, and this is the story about Jesse Owens. If you don't know, Jesse Owens was a track and field. He was a track star who participated in the 1936 Olympics in Berlin, Germany, and he stunned a lot of people. He won a record-breaking 4 gold medals at the 1936 Berlin Olympic Games. So, Stephen James, an actor named Stephen James, is starred as Jesse Owens. A couple other people in the movie, Jason Sudeikis. Sudeikis is kind of a surprise to me because Jason Sudeikis is known for comedy, comedy movies and stuff like that. This is more of a dramatic film, so it's good to see actors branch out into other genres of film, and you get more work that way. You avoid being typecast as, a comedy actor and stuff like that in the case of Sudeikis. So, the movie itself has done pretty well. I mean, it was made on a low budget, $5 million. But it's made $16.5 million thus far, so that's not too bad. That's not too bad of a moneymaker for the film. Critically, 60% on Rotten Tomatoes. That is definitely I think if we're gonna go with I think it's passing. I think it's a passing grade. Just by the skin of its teeth, it passed pretty much, but 60% is the rating for it, which is kind of surprising for this biopic. It really is kind of a biopic about the main character is Jesse Owens. So yeah, this film is pretty good, pretty solid, but not spectacular critical reviews, and it made some money. Next film I'm going to talk about is the movie Risen. I just mention it because it's one of those faith-based films, I believe. Actually, this is the story of... Let's see. This is a story involving the Lord, Jesus Christ. This is a biblical epic film involving Jesus Christ and all that. You see a lot of these type of films, faith-based type films, that come out, and typically these movies get negative reaction. They make money, but they get negative reaction. And I think it's because they try to beat us over the head so much with the message of the faith, of whatever faith it is. It's like, you should follow this religion, or something like that anyway, but it's just you can't, if you beat us over the head with these type of messages, it does turn people off. So I think this is kind of why critics are rough on these type of movies, for sure. Critically, though, this movie got a 58%, so mixed reviews for it. And $20 million budget, it's made $29 million thus far, so it's still early. It'll make some more money and all that, so maybe not a lot more, but it'll make some. And then the next movie I'm going to talk about is The Witch. I've heard a lot of good things about this movie. It's a horror film. I'm not a big fan of horror in general, the horror genre, but I've heard this movie is actually pretty good. For the movie it was made on a $1 million budget, and it's made $21.6 million. That's a success for sure. And it's still out, I think, in theaters, so it's going to make more money, but you got to consider this movie to be a success for sure. Critically, this movie got an 89%. So there you go. This movie has gotten a lot of positive reviews, and it's been a success. Moving on, we're going to go now to the week of February 26th. It's the last week in February, and I'll talk about 3 more films in particular. Okay, I covered all the first 3 weeks. So the final week, there were 3 major movies that came out. And the first one I'm going to talk about is Eddie the Eagle. Eddie the Eagle is a story about this guy who is the first representative of Great Britain in the Olympics ever. But this guy is, to put it plainly, he sucks in the Olympics. You know, he finishes last every event, but this story is a story about it's a feel-good story. It's like this guy never gave up. Even though he lost every single Olympic event, he still did not give up. He persevered, and he kept trying again. So it's one of those feel-good movies that you see. One of those feel-good sports movies. And you see some of them around, you know. That movie Miracle with Kurt Russell comes to mind. And there are many other ones as well. The movie itself, Taron Egerton from Kingsman, The Secret Service, stars as Eddie the Eagle. You have Hugh Jackman, who's a big star in this film, and Christopher Walken also pops up in this movie. Overall, so far, $23 million budget. It's only made $11.5 million. From what I've heard, and this movie's still out, so it's going to make more money. But early on, this movie has not gotten a lot of, has not gotten the audience clamoring for, you know, to go out and see this film. And I've heard it's kind of because of the marketing, and you get that. A lot of marketing, some marketing for films is not very good. And that, marketing is a big thing towards getting the fans out to see your movie. It's huge. And if you don't have the right marketing for the type of film you're presenting, fans aren't going to go out and see the movie. So the marketing for Eddie the Eagle probably was off enough where people just weren't interested in going to see it. Now, it'll change, you know, it's definitely going to change. It'll, you know, people are going to go, it's still going to make more money. There's some people that'll still go, that'll be interested in the movie, and they'll go see it. But this movie's not going to be a big money maker based on what's happened now, you know, so far. Critically, the movie has a 76% on Rotten Tomatoes, so that's a good critical review right there. An average critical review. Um, so the critics like it, the fans, there are still some that are going to go see it, but it's just not a big moneymaker. It's not going to be. The next film I'm going to talk about is Gods of Egypt. Gods of Egypt has a big cast. You know, a couple names in particular: Gerard Butler and Chadwick Boseman. Chadwick Boseman, of course, known for biopics 42. He was Jackie Robinson and James Brown in that movie, Get On Up. Gerard Butler, he was in Olympus Has Fallen, 300 other action movies, a big action star. And romantic comedy star, too. But yeah, this movie is a swords and sandals type of film. It's a fantasy film, but it's kind of, I think it's kind of a swords and sandals type of film. These films typically don't do all that well. Films about ancient Egypt, for example, you know, ancient Egypt, ancient times. Lately, these movies have not done well at all. And fans, I don't know, are extremely interested in them. So, swords and sandals / fantasy film like this scale of Gods of Egypt, they just haven't done extremely well. You have to think that this movie is going to be a box office bomb, because so far the budget was $140 million, and box office $73.1 million so far. So you have to think this movie's not going to make its money back. It's going to be one of those bombs for sure. I've heard the special effects for the movie are quite awful. I've actually heard they aren't very good. Critically, the movie itself, it only has a 13% on Rotten Tomatoes, so a very poor review for this film. So, and there's been a lot of criticism for this movie, and then in particular, a couple years ago there was a movie that came out, Exodus, Gods and Kings. There have been movies like these that have been accused of whitewashing, and what I mean by that is they take white actors and they put them in foreign roles, like Gerard Butler, for example, white. He takes the role that an Egyptian should play, that an Egyptian actor should play, or another foreign actor, and all that type of thing. So, whitewashing's a big problem in Hollywood these days, and it's unfortunate, but still, with the white cast they put up and the talent they put up, the movie still sucks, you know, critically and box office wise too. So, Gods of Egypt, pretty much. And then the final movie I'm going to talk about for February is 999. 999's actually a movie I'm looking forward to seeing. It is a crime thriller drama. And it's got an impressive cast. Casey Affleck, the brother of Ben Affleck. Anthony Mackie, probably best known as Falcon from the Captain America movies, from the Marvel movies. Aaron Paul, known for the show Breaking Bad. Norman Reedus, known for the show The Walking Dead. Woody Harrelson, star, you know, a good actor. Kate Winslet's in this film. So, an impressive cast. And this movie's about a heist that goes on. These dirty cops, they have to pull off an impossible heist. A very hard, tough heist to pull off. they're pressured by a Russian mafia, the Russian mafia, to do it, and they're doing it. And 999 actually is a code for officer down. It's a code that the police use, and so it plays prominently in this film for sure, because there's an officer that's supposed to be gunned down. All the police officers in the area go to this guy, the guy who's gunned down, 999, and then the people can pull their heist. The bad guys can pull their heist. So that's kind of what the basis of the story is. I want to see this movie. I really do, at some point. So far, $20 million budget. It's made $13.8 million. It's going to make more money, for sure. It will make more money. And critically, the movie has a 55%, so mixed. So definitely mixed reviews for this movie. And so that's pretty much it. 999 was the last one I'm going to talk about. So overall, for the month of February, a lot better. A lot better. You had mixed reviewed films like 999, Eddie the Eagle, Race in particular, and then you had critical successes like Deadpool, Hail Caesar, and then you had your duds like The Choice, Gods of Egypt, and Zoolander 2. So a very mixed week, a very mixed month and all that, but overall a better month for movies than the month of January. So coming up next, coming up next, of course, will be the month of March, and I will be talking about the movies that come in the month of March, probably at the end of March or around April or so, the beginning of April. I'll try to get that video out then. So that's it for this video on the February films. D-Rock 1992 out.